Welcome back, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you. I've been waiting for this day ever since the last March 17th. I especially enjoy having corned beef and cabbage. In New England, it's always been called New England boiled dinner by many people, and because New England boiled dinner is something that can be more varied than simply corned beef. It can be picnic ham, it could be sausage, it could even be fish. And that's not uncommon. But today we're going to be making the very famous corned beef and cabbage recipe that us Irishmen always like. Now I'm equal parts of Irish and Scottish and Welsh, but today I declare myself totally Irish just to have the fun. And I hope you enjoy this. We're going to step over the counter and I'll show you how simple this is to put together. Now this is the popular red corned beef that you'll find throughout most of the country, and it's red because it's been treated with nitrates for preserving it, and it gives it that nice red color, which looks very appealing. But if you go around the Boston area, you're more likely to find gray corned beef, which doesn't have the nitrates. And some people, especially Bostonians, really enjoy having the gray corned beef. But it's not something that you can get up in New Hampshire, way up in central New Hampshire, and it's simply not available up here. So I'm basically just going to stay with this red corned beef, which is packaged. This one's actually packaged in Arkansas. Now, there's two kinds of corned beef. There's the point cut and there's the flat cut. Now, if anybody who's familiar with beef briskets knows that this is about a half a size, this is about half, maybe even a third of a full-size brisket. And this here is the point cut. This is one end of the brisket. This piece of beef right here is a lot more fatty. Some people really enjoy this. It's a less expensive cut. Considerably less expensive. This is about $2.99 right now a pound, and this is running about $5.99 a pound, and I've seen this upwards of $7 or $8 a pound. But this here has a lot more shrinkage because of that fat content, whereas this has less. But because this has more fat content, it's much more tasty, and it can be more tender. So you have to pick your druthers. If you're going to feed a big group of people, you'll need to have a lot of this before you start cooking it, because it's going to shrink right up. But you'll notice it's got some packets in here, and these are simply pickling spice. And pickling spice is one of the ingredients that is used in basically a boiled corned beef. And we're going to use our own pickling spice because I know it's fresh and it's really high quality, but this is certainly good. The other things that we're going to use in this dish are the following. Now the recipe starts out by cooking the beef first, and that takes 1 hour per pound, and I've got the larger one is what I'll base my time on. The other one's just going to go along for the ride. And into the pot of water with it, I'll put some celery. I've got here 3 or 4 sprigs of celery with the leaves. That's good. I've got three or 4 cloves of garlic. These are industrial sized garlic. I like garlic. Everybody in our house does. So this is going to go in this split. I've even got some capers. That's something I've discovered a number of years ago. I've been using those probably about 35 years, and they're fantastic. And here you've got some spices. I've got in here 2 tablespoons of dry parsley. I've got some pickling spice, salt, and pepper. And this is not a naval anti-ship mine. This is an onion studded with cloves. And the reason why I do that is because by studding it with cloves, you don't end up with sharp cloves floating around the pot that might get into somebody's mouth, which would be very uncomfortable. So this is a good thing to do. You just stud this onion with cloves, and it makes things a lot more convenient. All right, so into the pot we're going to put our beef. Be sure to reserve those juices. That's important. So pour the whole package directly in, and don't drop that packet in. You don't need that. Oops, I didn't get it all. Blister packs. Try it again. There we go. Grab that seasoning packet. Same thing with this one now. In other words, I'll rinse those juices into the pot with the juices. Same thing with the other bag. That's the second one, and that just about covers the beef. I'll put a little bit more water in there. Into the pot go my onion, celery, garlic. Now you can use one of these gadgets right here if you want and squeeze them in. It's not necessary. I'll show you how this works if you haven't seen one before. It's just a very simple device that squeezes the garlic. But I'm going to use the, I'm just going to dump them in because they're going to give off all their flavor. And my capers. I just love capers. And my spices, I got this pickling spice. Now you could put those into you could put the pickling spice into a cheesecloth or a strainer, a tea strainer, anything like that, but it's not necessary. I find it just as handy to throw it all together. And it all sinks to the bottom of the pot afterwards anyway. Light up my stove on the big burner. I'm going to bring this up to a full boil, covered. As soon as it starts to boil, I'm going to turn the heat down to a simmer, and we're going to simmer it for 1 hour per pound, based on the largest piece. And then we're going to remove that beef afterwards, and we'll show you how that goes. Now, while we're waiting for that, we can pop open a Guinness Stout. Oh, man. Cheers. Aaron Gobra. That's good. So let's take a look. Ah, yes, we're coming up to a full boil. Now, don't mind this froth that appears. If you want, you can remove it. It's just going to disappear eventually. It's not harmful. It just kind of looks weird, but perfectly okay. I'll take it out though, just so I don't freak anybody out. It's just, I think it's just protein from the beef. That's all. And then we'll turn this temperature down to a simmer. There we go. And the reason why a lot of people like to put a cheesecloth in it is because you will remove some of your parsley and things like that, but I've got so much in there it really doesn't make any difference. Okay, we've got a nice simmer going on now. We'll cover it and let that continue for just about 4 hours, and we should be ready to add our vegetables. All right, it's been about 3 hours now. I expect that the smaller one, that point cut, will be done. And let's check it with a 2-pronged fork. If the meat slides off the fork after you've fully inserted it, then you know you're done. And the other one is still a little ways to go. It should be 4 hours, so another 45 minutes to an hour. So this one here I'll remove and add some of this liquor to it. We're going to pop this in the oven at 250 degrees just to hold it with a little bit of broth to prevent drying out, and then cover it with foil. So we'll be back in another 45 minutes and check out the big piece. Stay tuned. While we're waiting for that big piece of beef to get done, I can take this. We have guests tonight, so there's 4 of us, and this is a nice sized cabbage for the 4 of us. We'll divide it into 2, and it's typical for this meal to. We'll get rid of this outside leaf here. It's a little bit weird looking. Trim it up. And then I'm going to wedge it, so we'll wedge it into 6 pieces. And I'm going to put this in with the beef. That beef is going to be done in a while, but cabbage takes a long time to cook. So when it goes, trim this end off here first. You got to be careful not to trim too much off because all the leaves will fall apart. And now the carrots and the potatoes will go in later on. But we'll cut them up while we're here. Take advantage of our time. Now about the potatoes, we've got regular Maine potatoes here. These are the same batch of potatoes that I was making the clam chowder with, and they're fine. They're good. If I were to recommend potatoes, I would recommend new potatoes and leave the skins on, or red potatoes and leave the skins on. They're really nice that way. So we'll get back to this when the rest of the meat is done, and we'll put the vegetables in, and then we'll give those probably about an hour all told. All right, this beef should be done. We'll give it the fork test. Perfect, absolutely perfect. The fork again should just slide right in and slide out without any resistance. So the cabbage is cooking nicely. We'll put the this is the big flat cut. Cover that. Put a few drops of liquid in it. And we'll put that in the oven for just a little while until the rest of the vegetables are cooked. I can't describe how this smells. It smells wonderful. And then I'm going to turn the heat up because these are going to really cool it down. So we're going to go the carrots, and potatoes. And again, you can add all kinds of things. You can add parsnips, onions, whatever your heart desires. So this is a New England boiled dinner, aka corned beef and cabbage, for St. Patrick's Day. We turn that to a boil, and then we'll simmer it for about 25 minutes or so, and we should be eating. I would say we're done. Check out the potatoes. Oh yeah, they're nice. They're in good shape. So now we're gonna remove all our vegetables here. Cabbage, just whatever comes out. All right, look at this. I've got two beautiful pieces of beef here. Now, this is the flat cut. It's most important with brisket is to identify which way the grain runs. The grain is running, as you look at from the lean side, the grain is running in this direction. You always want to cut it. You always want to cut it perpendicular to the grain. So that's what we're going to do with this knife here, and slice it at an angle, about 1/4 inch slices. You can slice it paper thin if you want for sandwiches. Some people like to trim off that fat, but this one wasn't that fatty to begin with, and the fat is delicious. If you don't want it, you don't have to eat it. Good to have a nice sharp carving knife like this. Makes life easy. It's a gorgeous looking piece of meat. Very tender. I'll cut one more, and then I'm going to go to that point cut, because that's a very flavorful piece of beef. And we didn't have much shrinkage. Look at that. So this one, again, the grain runs lengthwise. So we're just going to slice this up. This is very, very tender. I like both cuts. And we'll plate these up. Look at that beautiful beef. Corned beef brisket. It's the point cut. And we've got our vegetables. And this is a New England boiled dinner and corned beef and cabbage for St. Patrick's Day. I hope you enjoyed this cooking. We're going to go eat. Don't forget to subscribe. And thanks to all my Patreon subscribers for your help and your great assistance. God bless.